Howdy, friendos, and welcome to my wacky emporium, baby. That's right. Friends, it's time for me to finally talk about my favorite genre. My favorite genre in books, my favorite genre in music, art, and especially movies. And that would be the post-apocalyptic genre. Now, it's been a long time coming. I know I've mentioned several times I want to talk about some of my favorite post-apocalyptic movies. I know a lot of you guys have asked about it. You know what? Excuse me for a second. I'm gonna start my little stopwatch here because, you know, this is a subject that needs time, but I don't want to go overboard because I feel like this is a subject that we're probably going to discuss in more than one video. And in saying that, I didn't want to make a top 10 video. I didn't want to make, Kitty, don't start right now, please, for God's sakes. I didn't want to, you know, make a definitive list or anything like that. I decided not to do that with my movies. And, you know, I just wanted to have a general sort of talk session with you guys. That being said, I do have movies here that I'm going to recommend to you. And these are movies that, this video has been a long time coming, but it really sprang from the videos I've been making lately, these top videos, and people have been asking me about my top post-apocalyptic movies. And I remember talking about The Road, appeared on my top 20 of the past decade, or the 2000s. And you know, I remember mentioning to a couple of people that there are post-apocalyptic movies out there that make The Road look like Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. I mean, you know, The Road, yes, it's a depressing movie, but they made some movies in the 80s that are really, really hardcore that way. And the first one I'm going to talk about is Testament. And unfortunately, I don't own that movie. Probably because it's a very difficult movie to watch. They have it down at the library, and every once in a while when I'm browsing around, and I feel like, you know what, I could handle watching this movie today. In fact, I'm in a weird movie to watch that movie. Now, you know, a lot of people can understand enjoying the post-apocalyptic genre. Not a lot of people could understand watching the movie Testament and some of these other movies I'm going to talk about. Testament, like The Day After, or the movie I'm going to talk about, Threads. They're all very realistic portrayals that they were trying to make in the 80s. I think to show people what it would really be like. And in Testament, what they do is they take this small town. They don't show nuclear devastation. You know, the houses are standing. You know, everything is fine. They don't get the destruction. What happens to this small town is they get cut off from the rest of the world, and they slowly run out of food. People start getting sick from radiation poisoning, and people start dying. And it's all about how these people come together as a community and handle that as their society collapses. And the biggest thing about this movie and Threads especially, what makes it so depressing is not the loss of civilization, the loss of humanity. That's what makes these movies depressing. Because in some of the lighter-hearted post-apocalyptic movies, because there's genres and subgenres, for me at least. Today I'm not talking about movies like Mad Max. I love Mad Max. I love The Road Warrior. I love Beyond Thunderdome, especially for all of its cheesiness. But today I'm not going to talk about those movies. I'm going to talk about the more serious movies, or the more dramatic movies, or just the more quirky films that maybe you haven't seen. They're not all necessarily dramas, but, you know, they're more of the low-key films, more of the thinking man's kind of movie, you know. But yeah, Testament, I don't have it. It's you know, I keep pushing off, you know, buying it because it's really not a movie, man. You got it. And I'm going to go ahead and warn you guys right up front. If you're in a depressed state, don't watch Testament or Threads. Now, Threads, I don't own a proper copy of that either. I have a burned copy. I don't believe this has ever been released in the United States, either on VHS or DVD. At least not the last time I looked. I could be wrong. If I am, please, correct me on that. And I do need to go ahead and import a good copy from the UK. At this juncture, I guess I'm holding out hope that maybe a Blu-ray will pop up. I haven't checked in a while, so maybe you guys could let me know. But Threads was kind of like the British version of The Day After, I guess. It follows a whole story, not only from a personal standpoint of what's happening with like a family, but what the people in charge are doing, the politicians, the government officials. And, Threads, what I like about this series is that it mini-series, I guess, is what it was. It follows, I think it goes ahead, I can't remember how many years, but it goes decades into the future after the nuclear event, and it takes you through step by step how the society and culture degrades. And again, what's depressing about Threads is showing how the next generation and then the generation after that, they start losing their humanity. Maybe they start regaining it, I don't know, but it's just, that's what makes those movies so depressing. Road Warrior and some of the other movies I'm going to be talking about is a little more fun. It's the fun side of Post-Apocalyptia. You know what I'm saying? It's the walking through the wasteland, taking whatever you want, that sort of thing. So the next movie, naturally, that I should talk about, a lot of you guys I'm sure have seen this, is A Boy and His Dog, which I also have on my little post-apocalyptic, I don't know, this entire row up here. Of course, you guys know I love the Fallout series. I forgot to mention that. Also in gaming, I love post-apocalyptic genre. But A Boy and His Dog, by the way, I do believe this is on Netflix Instant Watch. So for those of you who have that, this is in the public domain. This movie is just, it's great. It's got a great, the thing I love the most about Post-Apocalyptic is the atmosphere. Really, I love to see characters walking through, the desert or the, burnt out buildings, the wasteland, we get some good imagery in here, and then got a really quirky, funny story, but in a very dark way. It's an early role for Don Johnson, and basically he's wandering the wasteland with this telepathic dog, who he uses basically to find women for him and other things. But then they descend into this underground society that they're keeping together the American spirit. They've got big 4th of July celebrations. A very strange place, and they're trying to use him because they can't reproduce, so they need his his seed. It gets funny, it gets weird. It's definitely one of my favorite post-apocalyptic films. But moving on, let's talk about Glenn and Randa. This is probably one of those films that maybe you haven't heard of or you haven't seen. This isn't for everybody. I'm not going to recommend that you run out and get this. This movie was directed by Jim McBride. 1970, and when it came out it was rated X. I think mainly just because of the pervasive nudity. Again, it's very slow paced, and if you're not a real hardcore fan of the genre, you may find yourself getting a little bored. But I do love the tagline here. Once upon a time, there were countries, cities, schools, movies, electric appliances, the Beatles, politicians, and then Glenn and Randa. But actually, even though it sort of insinuates that there's a nuclear war and here's Glenn and Randa, this takes place. Glenn and Randa weren't alive when this event took place. They sort of grew up in the after, the post-apocalyptic world. Which, yes, there is a distinction in literature and movies between an apocalyptic movie and a post-apocalyptic movie. Let's take, for instance, Deep Impact. That would be an apocalyptic movie, even though at the end you sort of see, if they follow the story after that, maybe more of a post-apocalyptic setting. But I'm digressing here. Glenn and Randa, they're kind of like an Adam and Eve archetype characters. For instance, Glenn, he takes this, he finds this comic book, and he doesn't understand any, he just thinks that it's real, that he finds that there's a city in there, and so they go on a search for this city, and he thinks it's absolutely that it exists. But Glenn and Randa, again, the atmosphere in this movie is great. What they did with what they had to work with their production design. So there you go. Next up, this is going to be a little bit different. It's actually an animated film, When the Wind Blows. Now, When the Wind Blows is actually, even though it's an animated movie, it's actually the most heartfelt post-apocalyptic film, in my opinion, that I've seen. This movie brings the tears. This has got a lot of emotion in it. It's got great animation. It's got really cool music. I mean, it's the way it's stylized may be a little bit off-putting for some people, but I just love it. It's got music by Roger Waters and David Bowie. It was actually directed by Jimmy. His last name, probably going to butcher it. Murakami? Is that right? Because he's the guy that directed Boom, Battle Beyond the Stars, one of my absolute favorite low-budget sci-fi films of all time. I'm looking over there because I actually have the original one-sheet poster. And yes, a review of the Shout Factory release Blu-ray will be coming soon. Anyway, When the Wind Blows, basically, you've got this elderly couple in Great Britain. By the way, some of the best movies and especially books come out of the UK. But they're kind of they're the World War II generation. They really believe in government. They really believe that the government's going to be able to protect them from full-scale nuclear war, and they follow all of the government guidelines on how to build a shelter and everything. But again, this is one I highly recommend for anyone. Whether or not you're a fan of a post-apocalyptic genre, if you're a fan of animation, I would definitely check this out. Okay, let's see. Just two more to talk about here. First of all, I want to talk about, this is definitely in my top 5 all time, and that would be The Last Battle. Or, I used to be able to do French very well, and I don't know what happened to my tongue in the past 5 years, but Le Dernier, Combat, what the fuck is wrong with me? How is it that 5 years ago I could do French very well? I could see it, and I could read it, and I could pronunciate it fine, but now, whatever. The Last Battle. Luc Besson's first movie, shot in black and white, virtually no dialogue. In fact, I believe there are only 2 lines uttered in the entire film. This has some of the greatest post-apocalyptic imagery that you will see, as far as the landscape. I mean, you go from a desert setting to a burnt-out city. You really get it all in this film. You get all the goods, as it were. And it's a great story, and to me it moves at a very good pace, even though there's no dialogue. And that, for me, that's a test of a movie. If you can turn the mute button on and still understand what's going on in the movie, then I think it's a pretty good movie. If you can still get the story and it still has some sort of effect on you, then I think that's a test for a good movie. So this right here comes with my highest recommendation, most definitely. The last film I'm going to talk about in this video is going to be The Quiet Earth. Maybe not so well known here, very well known in New Zealand, that's for sure. Won a lot of awards there. Great story, and especially the first 30 minutes. If you watch The Quiet Earth, take note of the first 30 minutes of this film, and that's why I love the post-apocalyptic genre. What this guy goes through in the first 30 minutes of this movie and what he does with his environment is why I love the genre. It's one of the reasons. There are a lot of reasons, and I'll talk about that further down the road. I'm going to tell you, one of the reasons is things seem really bad. So, if we have a breakdown of civilization and society, and you sort of think of yourself as the last man on Earth, it sort of frees you to do anything you want. Actually, I wrote a short story called Marlboro Man, about a sort of timid man who finally goes out into the world, and it's actually better than it was before, for him at least. I don't know about you guys, but for me in high school, I was pretty much a loner. I was actually kind of a shy guy then. I've developed into a not so shy guy, but in high school I was sort of a shy loner type. And yeah, so, in that way it really appealed to me. And another way is, once you meet other people, then you have a chance to rebuild society, maybe in a better way. I don't know. But anyway, The Quiet Earth actually does come in a Steelbook edition, which I was really excited to find out about. I could not believe they released this movie, of all movies, on a Steelbook edition. A very nice looking Steelbook edition, I might add. So anyway, guys, I'm going to wrap it up there, but this is not going to be the last video. This is not my final word on the post-apocalyptic genre. There are books I could talk about. I wanted to start with movies because we're primarily a DVD Blu-ray community here, and I definitely wanted to hold up those DVDs for you guys. But there are a lot of aspects of this genre I want to talk about. I want to hear from you guys, fans or non-fans. I gave you some recommendations. I hope you check them out. Give me some feedback below. Always appreciated. And again, if you haven't, be sure to subscribe to the Crazy Jason for updates on future videos to come. So that's it, folks. Thanks for watching. I'm Crazy Jason, and you've been in my Wacky Emporium, baby.